When will these idiots learn? How many times have we been here? How many times have we seen exactly this situation happen? A company decides to betray the people that made them in the first place. Ubisoft, BioWare, Bethesda, so many examples of this happening. A company just completely betraying gamers and their fans, most importantly, for the grand equivalent of what is not even $5 in turn for all of their future growth. Absolute idiots.
Gambling sponsors are now targeting predominantly young men through esports, and today Riot Games is basically about to make the whole thing much worse. But just so this is in context, this is the same industry that's linked to a 25% rise in US bankruptcy filings, so that's lovely, and young men in low.
That is actually insane. We all knew that gambling at some point is going to become a huge problem, by the way, because, I mean, it's obvious.
Income regions are the hardest hit population group. So with that in mind, now we get to
Makes sense. If you're poor, you don't want to wait until, the reasonable ways of getting and acquiring money. You want to be rich, and you want to be rich fast. And, well, this is technically that one way to do it. Buy a lottery ticket, honestly. That's less addictive, at least.
talk about how the biggest name in esports has just opened the goddamn floodgates. In short, Riot Games is allowing betting sponsors into League of Legends and into Valorant. And by making this move, they give every other esports league justification to follow. Basically, these companies know exactly who they are reaching, and now they have a direct pipeline. Here's the change. Sports betting sponsorships are coming to pro teams in North America.
Question. Is this going to be only a Western thing, or is China also okay with this? Because again, Riot owned by Tencent, Tencent owned by China. China does not see a lot of things good, and they banned them. So I wonder if this is going to be a thing that's allowed in China.
America, Europe, and the Middle East. Now, Riot first considered this in December 2024, but now the president, John Needham, has published this lovely blog post. It outlines what's happening and why they're doing it, plus how they plan to minimize risk.
I don't know what's his reasoning, but I know the exact reasoning why they're doing it. League of Legends was once the most popular game in the world. It's still very popular, but it's less popular, let's be honest. So, their revenue is dipping. While Riot was on top, they decided to create 200 trillion studios. They made Arcane, which was great, at least Season 1. Season 2, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't the biggest hater of it. I thought it was okay. I thought it was worth the watch, even though it was slightly a lot questionable. But in any case, they did a lot of things. And now most of those things are dead in the water. So Riot needs money. And you know that gambling sponsors are probably paying close to $1 billion for this for Riot. Without question. Gambling sponsors are gonna pay Riot literally close to billions for this.
Now you might be wondering, why now? And their justification is fairly simple. They say the teams have been asking for gambling sponsors for years. Obviously, because it's a lot of money. And audiences are already gambling. And here's the scale. League and Valorant generate 10.7 billion in gambling. But there is a problem, and that problem is that 70% of those bets are happening in unregulated bookies. And the unregulated part is what bothers Riot. Now they say it's unsafe because people may...
Surely. So let's just make it easier and more accessible. Yeah, that's... Surely. What do they think? We're complete idiots?
Lose money because these sites can be unscrupulous. And that absolutely is a risk. Of course, the other side is, people losing absolute humongous amounts of money via traditional gambling, working as intended.
Hey, it's either you lose money through this, or you lose money in Genshin Impact. Pick your devil.
Here's the basic logic they're using. So, you know how teenagers will be tempted to drink alcohol? So you might think it's better to give them something light under supervision, rather than have them, drink Tesco value vodka in a field somewhere. But the question, right, is that by legitimizing it, by making it more normal, giving it way more exposure, will you reduce the average damage done per individual, but actually cause far more harm overall because you've just went and expanded the market to way more people by making it easier to access? And would that actually mean, ran over time, you'd start to find more really, really bad problem gambling cases, because basically you're going to reach way more people, and that means way more people who could potentially fall into problem gambling. That's certainly my worry, but first, let's take a look at what this will actually look like in esports. A fun thing about this is Riot absolutely knows how this can be bad luck and all of the potential problems, so there is a degree of supervision from them in that they will personally vet.
Is there? They did this for money in the first place. So whatever amount of supervision they have problems with it can probably be just completely removed by enough money.
At every single sponsor. They also say they'll make sure that partnered betting services are using Riot approved data, which will mean that nobody gets actively manipulated. But there is a bit more. Teams are going to have to self-regulate their partnerships, and Riot's going to demand that each team makes an internal integrity program. You know, so that they can investigate themselves. And as for what that's got to be, Riot says a self-defined policy for selecting sponsorships. Doesn't seem like the highest bar on the earth to me. Teams can be held to this, though, by Riot and by fans, so you can see why they want to do this. You know, it's kind of like a PR incentive thing, and it's all designed to keep bad actors out of things. And of course, money is going to be trickled down, just like how many gambling policies work. Riot say that they'll take a portion of the revenue, and they say they'll invest that in Tier 2 esports programs. So the implication basically, right, is that these sponsors will become preferred betting partners, and in theory, that's safer than unregulated bookies, and that basically money from all of this is going to go into like the more grassroots side of esports. So really, dear gamer, all of this gambling is in fact good for you. Brackets, it's going to make all of us a shitload of money. But here's the thing. With how Riot are doing this, they are absolutely being cowardly, right? Because they've not fully committed to this. If Riot had have simply said, look, we want sport betting in our league as a part of the financial ecosystem, then they could have said that, you know, maybe just like any other advertising thing. But instead, no. They are hedging their bets. You see, they still insist that gambling is bad, right? I mean, otherwise, why ensure that it's not officially...
Obviously it's bad. That's why we chose to make it legal. Makes sense.
...connected. And even after vetting, well, just take a look at this. Riot-owned broadcast and social channels have got to stay betting free.
Bro, well, I mean, look at this. This is literally a room that's not gonna even hesitate to sell their house and place all the money on Red. Well, Red is not a winner. It's not even what they're betting on. Dude, this is gonna be a lot of money lost very, very fast.
Look at this. Riot-owned broadcast and social channels have got to stay betting free. That means no ads, it means no sponsored segments from betting partners, and it means no betting partner logos on team jerseys. So that's quite funny when you think about it. It is putting the pressure on everyone else. Official
Do you think those things like team jersey logos actually work? I don't know. They never worked for me. Has anyone actually ever, you know, got by any of those jersey betting things, or, you know, a side banner at a hockey rink saying drink Red Bull? Has that ever worked?
Absolutely no gambling, so who's going to get stuck with it? Well, I think the answer is fairly obvious, and we know that it's the team owners who really, really wanted this. So they're going to have to figure out where to put their contractually obligated sponsor content, and almost certainly that means pressure on players, or doing things like event co-streams. And those are actually not small numbers. As an example, co-casters of the 2024 Worlds made up 87.5 million hours, which is 45% of all event streams. So that's actually huge.
Wow.
Now, teams are going to have to walk quite the tightrope here. Basically, they've got to navigate platform policies and local laws. And as they do all of that, Riot will be raking in cash.
That's not a tightrope, honestly.
For permitting this. So the takeaway is quite a funny one. Riot Games thinks that betting ads are okay, but only if they're from chosen partners, and they don't think they're okay if they've got to advertise it themselves. Say, by...
I wonder, will Riot strike a deal with these sites to be like, hey, 20% of all you get is going my way? Damn, that's gonna be even more than just a license worth billions. Okay, they would probably... betting sites will probably pay a license for Riot. They can make a license at any point. It's not complicated. For $1 billion, and then even give them 20% of their earnings. This is how big this is gonna be.
team having a logo on a jersey and that team going to an event that they broadcast. Just quite weird, and it does look rather cowardly, like they're kind of trying to have it both ways. And if it doesn't seem convincing to you, well, it doesn't seem convincing to me, and I don't think it should to either of us. It's no surprise that the public reaction here has been absolute skepticism at every level. So with it looking so strange, why would Riot and these teams think that this is the way forward? The answer is very, very simple. Guaranteed money. Who doesn't want some guaranteed money? Essentially, esports groups have not really had that much guaranteed money lately. The esports winter started ages ago, and
Dude, I was so surprised. I haven't watched Twitch for like, I don't know, years at this point, honestly. But a week or 2 weeks ago, I just went on Twitch and I saw what I'm following. I don't even remember what I'm following, except Amaranth, obviously. And I saw the League of Legends Pro Tourney, or whatever the fuck it's called, and it had still 37k views. That's a lot. People are still interested in it, which always honestly surprised me because, guys, am I the only one who thinks League of Legends esports is like the most boring thing ever? I mean, on one hand, it's super boring to watch, but on the other hand, I have actually put it on my second screen while doing something else because it is kind of just chill and relaxing because, you know, not a lot of things are happening. Some people are just slowly, methodically talking about some vaguely familiar thing to me because there's never any hype moments in League of Legends competitive gaming, okay? A game with 10 kills is pretty hype in 13 minutes, okay?
It's still happening. We're seeing layoffs, we're seeing closures. Now, Saudi Arabian wealth has somewhat helped because, you know, they want to do some, I've forgotten the word of it, but it's kind of when you launder your reputation through sports. It's a very well-known thing. And obviously, Saudi money has got its own ethical concerns. So with all that floating around, basically, this is more consistent revenue from
a little bit of slavery here, a little bit of Indian work that doesn't get paid and then they vanish there. A little bit of maid falling out of the 20th story because you decided that it's going to be a fun idea to put your pet tiger on her. It doesn't even matter too much now, does it?
An industry that's desperate to expand.
Also, extremely based. Saudi Arabia, not even gonna lie.
And is desperate for consistent revenue. But of course, this
Saudi Arabia, can you take Mudahar? You know, asking for a friend?
This is all happening in a way that benefits Riot but does not benefit viewers. How many viewers would never have touched gambling before this? I don't know, but it's probably a lot. And what Riot have done is they've opened the door for that to happen.
The floodgates! We call them the floodgates because that's cooler. The door. Holy. Wow, talk about being lame. The floodgates. The Thunderdome.
And this doesn't even address some of the wider problems. Take a look at all of those gacha-based cosmetics that Riot rolls out. And I'm sure you've seen the headlines, right? Of like $350 to get like the big event skin. Well, funnily enough, a lot of people would say that that's kind of like the same as gambling. I mean, sure, you can't cash out, but it's probability-based bullshit to get an item that you want. Well, now they would be feeding that sort of audience, one that they're cultivating with all these gacha mechanics, directly into betting companies. You know, so I feel like if there's people who are going to be problematic...
Smart. It's like a predestined path. First you train them, then you get them.
...with gacha and get themselves into bother, there's probably a lot of crossover with people who will get themselves into gambling bother. And financial trouble from gambling hits young men in low-income regions the hardest. It's rough stuff, right?
By the way, I'm fully willing to take on Gamba sponsors. Just saying, okay? Not a lot of integrity here.
And studies do suggest that, of course, that is the exact demographic that is also the most likely to bet on esports. The case you can make for this leading to a lot of problems is, I think, pretty compelling. I mean, it's targeting the same group that is proven to show more problem gambling behavior than other groups. And then, of course, there's the risk to athletes themselves. And this is something that's not commonly thought about. Now, of course, esports people, they'll face match fixing.
The poorer the athletes are treated, the more amazing videos we have about someone in China being a pro low player and, you know, just deciding to evacuate the premises by a 9-story window. Okay, those stories are pretty wild.
Allegations as in traditional sports, but now there's an entire new type of hostility for them because once
Also, you know what's my favorite part about streamers who take gambling sponsorships? It's the fact that they have to play it. And this is what every single gambling site knows. They can pay a streamer literally millions, and if they keep doing the sponsorship for like a year or so, they're gonna get all of their money back. And they're gonna get then some more because they're addicted and the house always wins.
somebody loses a bet on one of these sites on the team that promoted that betting site, that anger can now go straight to the players. Blame can go
Based, you always say that it's not your fault and blame someone else through.
straight to the players. And that's not me speculating. This is the actual experience of athletes in physical sports. And it's one that's gotten far worse with micro-betting and app-based gambling that just, well, make it far easier to engage in all that shit. Here's a really fun quote. A December study by 4 of the biggest tennis federations in the world found that angry gamblers were responsible for nearly half of the 12,000 abusive social media posts directed at tennis players that year.
Okay, this is absolutely insane. Only 12k abusive posts against tennis players? Let's up those numbers! What are you saying? Like, tennis players are actually having it easy? Bro, I get more abusive posts from Asmongold fanboys saying, oh no, he does use toilet paper. There's no way Asmongold believes in toilet paper. Wow! Is tennis like the cheat code for an easy life or something?
So that's, not great. And all of this is before we talk about how gambling changes the culture. And of course, in this context, it's changing the culture around our games. And that, of course, can hurt how our games are made and designed. We can begin this whole game gambling thing with the very obvious black market of CSGO skins, right? So skin gambling is already very entrenched. But these companies, they crave something more. They crave legitimacy. And Riot Games just gave them that. You see, gambling groups and online casinos have tried to break into gaming for years and years and years. And we've seen this in many ways, like, say, press sites getting flooded with sponsored post offers. I actually get loads of sponsored post offers from similarly sketchy shit that, of course, I decline because I don't want to promote gambling to people. But the whole point in all of this is about normalizing the advertising of gambling, right? Getting it in front of an audience who are familiar with the idea of playing odds. And we can take a look at this already happening. For one, The Escapist immediately began running ads after being sold. And those ads included best offshore casinos for US players and best online casinos in the US. Lovely stuff. Meanwhile, Aftermath covered the Adventure Games Forum sale. This is wild. 20 years of archives were purged, but do you know what was added? Gambling coverage with advertising. Lovely. So, it's not about the games. It's not about gaming culture. It's about getting gambling in front of more eyes. So it's normalized. That's one piece of the puzzle. Get more people to see gambling in the context of gaming. The next piece of the puzzle, well, that's to make it legitimate. To make it legitimate, to make it feel legitimate, you gotta get someone like Riot on board. And that is exactly what Riot have been seemingly happy to do. Okay, I'll turn the focus back to Riot. Now, on this channel, we've extensively covered Riot's financial concerns, and because of all that, we do kind of know why they're approving this now. Teams, of course, need to survive the esports winter. That's very important for Riot. It's important to their whole business model, the culture around their game, the culture that drives all those skin sales. Now, of course, Riot gets a cut of that lovely guaranteed revenue, but they're not comfortable with this decision, or else they wouldn't have framed it as being a risky thing. They wouldn't have banned it from official streams. They also know the players won't like it. They're doing it anyway, and now the floodgates are very much open.
Money, money, money! Yeah, people are gonna do this. Every company is gonna succumb to gambling because this is how it effectively works, right? Gambling starts here. This is where all the big boys are. This is gambling. A little bit of time passes, gambling inevitably gets money. Now it's here. Now it has more money. It can pay more people. Now it gets here, here, and here. And sooner or later, they always will reach the point where they have enough money to offer something like Riot, when they're like, Well, it has a lot of money. We have to take it now. Gambling will always reach that level. It is Gambling is literally the shortest way to make money if you own the gambling. Not gambling itself. That's gonna lose you all your money. Okay? Ask your stepdad. That's how I got your stepmom. Anyway, that was Billy. A 10 out of 10. Bye.